On my birthday, on April the 8th, I went down to say goodbye to my birth mother. I was able to hold her hand in hospice. She's in the nursing home. They had doubled her morphine and given her Ativan, and she was not able to open her eyes and not able to speak. But I was able to say, I love you, and I'm eternally grateful for having known you and met you, and that you don't owe anybody anything, and it's okay to let go, that a better place awaits you. It didn't take long to say that, and 1 week later she died, and we're having her funeral this week. I talked to my Uncle William this morning, and he said the same thing. He said she was a servant. I used the phrase caregiver. She cared for 2 little kids. She cared for a drunk husband. She cared for 5 brothers and sisters. She cared for countless thousands of patients as an RN. She cared for her mother and father. She cared for me. She was tremendous. So, Helen Brett Schmid. Somewhere I think she's hearing, well done, my good and faithful servant. I'll always love you, my mother.
I remember getting tossed in the back of the car thinking, and it hurt like bang, bang, bang. And then it was dark until I woke up on the ground.
What is the sound of one man listening? This is ManListening, a fresh podcast featuring the stories of strong women who bounce back. ManListening, because every woman deserves to be heard.
Hi there, and welcome to ManListening. I'm Stuart Watson. I met Jo Burr through something called Author Accelerator. She's writing a memoir. I have written a memoir. We got to talking, and she has a fascinating story. And she's writing it about being a mother to a daughter with a lot of challenges, and you'll hear about that. It's a fascinating story. It's a story of family, a story of motherhood, of, what it takes to be this conscious mother. She never planned to have 5 kids. She's part of a big family, and it's just really interesting and very inspiring. So here's Jo Burr from St. Paul, Minnesota. Where were you born?
I was born in Mason City, Iowa.
For your mother, you were number what of how many?
Number 1.
Of 1? You're an
1
only
of 5.
1 of 5.
No.
And how
I
are
had
they
dreams
spaced
of being.
out?
Oh, okay. So I was born in April. Kid number 2 was born the next April. Kid number 3 was born the next April. Kid number 4 was 2 Aprils later, and then a tail ender in November. So 5.5 years from me to my youngest sister.
Now, sometimes they refer to those as Irish twins. Is that an ethnic slur?
Is that no? I don't think so. I almost think we're Irish triplets because the first 3 of us were right there.
Are you Irish?
Some, yeah, yep. I'm quite a European mix, but
yeah. Have you done the whole spit in the tube and see the ethnicities or the?
No, I haven't. I have a sister who's an attorney, and she's got some weird feelings about this. She's like, don't do it. So I haven't, but my brother did.
Yeah.
He did it.
Interesting. What did he find?
He found more English, which we didn't know. Like, we've been told Dutch and German and Irish were the main ones, a little bit of American Indian mixed in, but he came up with some English, which wasn't part of the story that we've heard.
Yeah.
So it was kind of interesting growing up. We didn't really have like a family like we're Irish or we're Dutch.
Did your mother tell you anything about her pregnancy with you?
She did. I was actually a honeymoon baby They got
Oh.
married July 1st and I was born April 2nd. So we, and they were young. She said she taught while she was pregnant with me, but then took time off towards, in March sometime. Not much about the pregnancy. She did say the delivery was hard. She went into labor in March and I was born in April 2nd. So she actually even apologized to me about how hard it was, and somehow if that affected me, she was sorry, which I thought was an interesting conversation.
How
course
old
don't
were you
know.
when she said that?
I was in college. So I don't know if she was going through some personal growth thing and realizing maybe, I don't know, different touch points in her life affected other people or something. I remember at the time thinking it was kind of odd, like it was more her issue than mine, but it was interesting.
Are you close with her?
Pretty close. Pretty close. She had a pretty rough growing up. I think that for the most part, I have patience with her and think she created a family way better than what she grew up with. I think sometimes she's a challenge, and I see that more with my siblings too. Like, oh, we got to take a break from mom. But I think I more feel sorry for her because this image of what she has in her head of what a close-knit family we are, I'm not sure we grew up as a close-knit family, but for her, I think that's what she wanted. Her dad died suddenly. And then her mom moved back in with her parents. And then I don't know if it came out before that, but my grandmother always, when I knew her, was struggling with bipolar. So was she on her meds, off her meds? My grandmother remarried when my mom was, I think, 7 or 8, to a man who was a widow who had 3 kids. So now all of a sudden she's in a blended family with 3 more older siblings. And then my new, step grandfather, I guess, they had 2 more children. So she kind of got lost in the shuffle. I'm not sure people paid a whole lot of attention to her. She was kind of on her own he was an alcoholic, the new husband. So I think it was more about the grandparents and not so much about the kids. Both my parents are second kids. So what I'm realizing lately is they both don't like to lead. So they don't like to make decisions, and neither one of them wanted to take charge of things. So a lot of times when we as kids ask, can we do this or that? There was well, I don't know. Well, I wanted to go on this ski trip. Well, I don't know. Like, decision making wasn't either one of their strong points.
What did that mean for you? For instance, did you, like when they couldn't make a decision, Coke versus Pepsi kind of a stuff, did you go, oh, for goodness sakes, let's just go here? Did you ever leap in to fill the gap?
I wanted to. You know what? That's interesting you asked that. I think I was often squelched. I think there was a very big, we're the parents, you guys are the kids. I know I had a list running in my head from I don't know when, that when I'm the mom, here's what we're going to do, kinds of things. And I do that now. And I think my mom still looks at me like, wow, you just decided. So it just wasn't, and I don't know if that's a birth order thing, but yeah, as the oldest, I'm like, here's your choices, pick one and go.
Did you want to be a mom?
I wanted to be a mom. I always thought I wanted 2 kids, because growing up in that pack of competitiveness, and in our house it was competitiveness. So we weren't really taught like we're a family, we do things as a family, we help each other. It was more everybody was on their own to figure things out. With our kids, I thought I wanted 2 kids, but after we had 2, they're just so cute and fun. So we kept going. So we have 5.
Lorraine and I have 4, so I know what that's like.
It's just, you can't even imagine. It's just, it's just, they're just amazing little people that look at you like you're the most amazing thing in the world, and they're fun. So I didn't think I'd have 5. I thought I would have a career, because my mom always stayed home. I thought I would have a career and that I would have like 2 kids and live in the suburbs. It's not what happened. So.
Yeah, things turn out differently.
Right.
So you guys were close in that sense.
Yeah. we were close, and we still, as siblings, we call each other, we bounce things off each other. But my husband is the youngest of 10. And they're constantly, like, his phone is constantly bing, 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 like someone's like, hey, have an awesome day. And everybody else is like, yeah, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And I just don't have that closeness with my siblings. I can call them. We all live within like 5 or 10 miles of each other.
Oh, my word.
I think growing up too, I don't know that my parents were more in survival mode. So like with our kids, we talked to them even in high school. What do you want to do? What are you good at? What has programs that fit you? For me, I grew up in survival mode with parents in survival mode. And so I just looked at what would check the boxes so I can graduate in 4 years.
And when you say survival mode, what do you mean? Like, just we got to pay the bills, or?
There was some financial stress growing up, but it was more nobody, and maybe this is because my parents didn't have it, I don't know. Nobody really guided us as kids. Like, we were fed, we were taken care of, we were loved, but there wasn't a lot of, oh, that's interesting to you, let's see if we can do that. Like, my mom marvels at, like, we have a kid who loves horses, which did not come from me, but she loves horses. So we helped her find a way to lease a horse by cleaning the mucking stalls, which she loves. Like, we kind of take the time, okay, here's where your gifts are. So what are you going to do with them? And so when you're going to school, what are you thinking about when you go to school? And I don't, like, we try to be more intentional with what we do and what our kids do. And I think my parents, because they grew up with alcoholism, maybe, I don't know, they really, really protected us from that, which I really appreciate now. As a kid, we weren't really allowed to see our grandparents, and I didn't get it because all my friends saw their grandparents. But now I know why. I think they were protecting us. So I think they were very intentional about not drinking and didn't in our house. But when my grandfather came, my dad bought one of those, like, Gallo, I think, like those gallon glass wine things. And my dad was pouring a glass for my dad, or for his dad, for my grandfather. And I was like, wow, pink liquid in a really pretty cup. I remember asking my dad, can I have a sip? And he was going to let me try it. I think I was 7. And I remember my mom swooping in like, oh, no, we're not going there. That was my only encounter with my grandfather was that. And then when I was in like 7th grade, he was dying of when your liver just kind of falls apart.
Cirrhosis?
Yes. And so we'd get phone calls from my aunt. Well, grandpa's back in the hospital. Well, now he's sick again. So we knew he was dying, and we knew he was dying basically because his body had just had too much alcohol over the years.
How did you learn what that meant and what impact it had on the successive generations?
On us, I think here's part of the deal. I was in a car accident when I was 16, junior year, like super serious. Nobody could believe anybody lived. We all got thrown from the car. It was horrific. And all 3 of us are now, I mean, you wouldn't guess, I had some surgery on my knee, but nothing big. And we were actually on our way to a party. That was the first time where I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to, the kids it was a rural town, so everybody went to somebody's barn. And on the way to that party, we were going like 90 miles an hour around a curve, hit something, and the car went flying.
Oh my God. Who was driving?
It was a friend of mine. So there were 2 friends and 3. There were 3 of us. Wow. So the driver was up front. She had her seatbelt on. The other passenger was up front. And she's the one who knew where we were going. She's the one who knew who had the beer and all that stuff. And I was in the backseat like, ooh, I'm the rebel, because I never went. I always listened to my parents. So I'm sitting back there being the rebel. And then the car went out of control. We flipped, and it was night and dark and cold. And I was the first one to like wake up. We all got knocked out. I was on my stomach, and I looked up, and I was close to the car, which had landed near me, or I landed near it. And I thought, my very first thought was, mom and dad are going to find out about this.
I'm going to be in trouble.
I can't hide this one. I could sneak in late maybe, but this is it. And so about a month after that, my one friend said, I'm going to give myself a month and I'm going to start drinking again. And I remember thinking, I'm not going to start.
Had
that
you
was
guys been drinking in the car?
No,
You hadn't had anything.
we hadn't had anything.
So
but we were,
it wasn't a drunk driving accident. It wasn't.
no, we were following some boys. So,
and they were going really fast.
And they were going really fast. And so my friend was going, I think they said 90 miles an hour. And so the car did a full flip, end on end in the air, and then 3 flips end on end into the field.
Do you remember that?
I remember getting tossed in the back of the car thinking, and it hurt like bang, bang, bang. And then it was dark until I woke up on the ground. So if I had died, it would have been like that, and I wouldn't have noticed that anything was happening. But when I woke up, I looked up, and I was on my stomach, and I remember trying to get up, and I couldn't move. I could only move my neck, and I thought, oh, great, now I'm paralyzed. I remember thinking that I'm paralyzed. So I laid back down, and I took a deep breath, and then I got up, and I've been fine. But we couldn't find the one who said, I'm going to start drinking again soon. She was like 100 feet somewhere else. They couldn't find her. The ambulance people came. They were walking around with flashlights and nobody could find her. I mean, it was really traumatizing. It was scary and eye-opening, and like, I'm not doing that again. So
do you ever see those people now?
I do. I saw them at school because we all went back to school, but I kind of distanced myself from the one who said, I'm going to give myself a month and go back to drinking. I'm like, okay, we're on different paths here. So, I'm friends with her on Facebook, but we don't interact much. The other one, actually, I just had lunch with last week. I don't see her very often, but it was probably 5 years ago when I saw her, and I told her, I forgive you. Like, I think we never talked about it. And like, I don't blame her, and I'm not any of that, but I think that meant something to her when I acknowledged that this was just a stupid thing that could have happened to anybody.
What did she say when you said that?
I don't know that she said anything. I think she was relieved. I think, we talked a little more about it. But I can't imagine carrying the burden of that, of doing that, to your friends, so to speak.
Did you ever say, wow, I could have died?
Oh, it has changed how I do a lot of things. Definitely. I definitely could have died. So then you're laying in the hospital, right? And they bring your parents in. And so, I'm laying.
Their reaction?
Oh, they were already in bed. So they got a phone call from the hospital saying, your daughter's been in an accident, come to the hospital. And I didn't want them to come. I was so embarrassed and I don't know, shameful or whatever. But they came in and stood at the foot of my bed. And I think they were just in shock. So they actually, you know what? I don't remember if they came that night. I know the next morning they released me. And my dad didn't say a word. He just drove past the place where the accident was and just pointed. And he didn't really say anything.
When you say it changed a great deal about how you react or behave, what? How did it change you?
I think mostly when I just through life, I'm thinking, when I'm having a hard time or life sucks, or I've never really been depressed, but I've been like, okay, what's next? Or what does God want from me? Because I don't think I'm hearing it. I always think there's something to find, because if God was done with me, he could have taken me in 2 seconds. And nobody would have questioned it. I mean, it wasn't like, you fell off your bike and died. It was definitely strong enough to take a life. And I feel like, if God was done with me, he would have grabbed me right there. So there's got to be something I'm not done yet. There's something more he needs me to do.
How old are you?
54.
I'm almost 62. And
Okay.
when you had the accident, you were 17?
16.
Okay, if this was it today, just up to 54, if you could sit by the bedside and talk to Joe when she was in the hospital back then, and Joe would be like, wow, I wonder why I even survived. If you just told her about just up to right now, what would you tell her about what happened between 17 and 54 that you would say, here's why you survived?
Wow. I think big picture, learning to love people. The judgmentalism of, I don't know, I probably was judgy in high school. Most 16-year-olds are. But I think what I've developed since then is loving people where they are. That would probably be the biggest thing. And just appreciating people for who they are. And then I think I've kind of also from that just extrapolated, you know what, everybody's here for whatever reason. People come and go in your life to learn something, to give something. You want to leave people glad they met you and feeling blessed to have met you, whether you're just giving them a smile or you're, a closer friend who you're walking through something creepy or crappy with them. I think that the joy of life is the relationships.
And if you talked to Joe back then, what would you tick off on like the highlight reel for Joe to say, stick around, you won't believe?
Yeah, I would say, like, don't be scared to stretch yourself. Like me taking the leap to go to Pennsylvania for school, that was awesome. And then I decided I was too sophisticated to come back to small town Minnesota. So I moved to DC for a couple of years. Yeah, right. I'm here now. But in DC, there's just so many unexpected cool things if you keep seeking and growing. I applied for a consulting job in DC and was on a team that went to Korea to work with the Army to create some software. And like, there's no way when I was 16, I could imagine doing that. What else?
So you would tell her you're going to go to school in Pennsylvania and you're going to get this cool job in DC and you're going to leave behind this place and you're going to go to Korea and develop this software and it's going to be fascinating. And what else? Keep going.
And then reconnecting with family, like going out to figure out who you are, going to the mountain and then coming back, getting married to an awesome guy.
How'd you meet that dude?
I met him. Okay, so this is another serendipitous thing. So I moved into the dorms a week early at St. Francis when I transferred because I was a transfer student. And all the women around me were friends with my husband, Chris, and his roommate, Mike, and a couple other guys. So when I moved in and they all started coming, they're like, let's go, Chris, let's call Mike, let's go, blah, 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 go to the pizza place. So we went down. I still remember the first time I ever saw Chris. We all piled into one person's car. It was rare to have a car on campus. And we drove down to pick up Chris and his roommate, Mike. And he was coming out of St. Louis dorm. He had a white jersey with the red sleeves, just, like slow motion walking in a movie. I was like, wow. And he got to sit by me. And we shared pizza. And then from there, it just kind of it grew from there at school. But
is that dorm still there?
Yeah, we do the kid tour. We drag them through and say, here's the dorm, here's the pizza place, give them the tour.
And the pizza place is still there?
Yeah. Well, Spanky's Bar, we went in there with 5 kids. I think the oldest was 10, and we all had pizza at Spanky's. Yeah.
That's great. What kind of pizza?
You know what? I got mushroom and sausage. I would eat the main part, and Chris would eat pizza too, but he always ate my crust. I don't know, it's too much bread for me. So he would eat the crust. So
from the beginning he did?
That very first pizza, I didn't finish my crust and I saw him staring at my plate and I'm like, well, that's a little forward, But yeah, he ate my pizza crust that very first day.
There's something a little intimate about that.
So we got married at St. Francis and then moved back here to Minnesota. So we've been here for almost 31 years.
And how long before y'all had kids? Right away, or?
No, it was about 5 years. We had some infertility and stuff going on. And it's interesting because we did so many different invasive things. We didn't get as far as in vitro, but we tried this drug. I'm like, for a while, I'm like, are we not doing this right? Like, you just wonder what's going on. But after the first baby, whatever was going on fixed itself. So it was about 5 years.
And then you had 5.
Yeah.
So you know what it's like, these women who are terribly frustrated and, they get very distraught and depressed and,
It's you know what I realized, it was the one when we were in the muck of it and not sure, because we were almost ready to call an adoption agency because we did want kids. This was one of the few, this was like the one thing I couldn't have. Anything else, if I wanted to do, I was smart enough or knew somebody smart enough, or I could get the money or knew somebody who had money. It was like the one thing I couldn't have no matter what I did. And that was an icky feeling because, we're like, women are supposed to be independent and figure things out. And, you can try things and you can talk to people, but if you're not getting pregnant, that's a really hard thing. Really, really hard. Yeah.
What I always wondered about, and I ask this again and again and again, and I get all kinds of different answers, but how much control we really have over anything. You make choices.
Yeah.
And when you said that word, you said I used the word synchronicity.
Okay.
Or some people say, you had a different word, serendipity. It was one of the, when you and Chris go out and you're at the pizza place and everybody likes Chris and his roommate and all the girls are there, but somehow you end up with him and they don't.
Mm-hmm.
Fate, God's will, random molecules, manifestation. Where are you with all that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that. I think there's the setup of the situation of you're born into the family you're in, and you've got your DNA. I think you see how your parents live and kind of either make choices like them, or you intentionally make choices not like them. Our family's kind of an interesting family with our kiddos, with the 5 kids, because we tried to encourage them in their own way. So we've got 5 kids born in 8 years. They all came from the same place. They all grew up in the same house. But we have one, our oldest is actually a nun. She's a postulant with the Nashville Dominicans in Tennessee, in Nashville. And that's her calling. She went to Notre Dame. She got her theology degree. She got scholarships. She taught for a couple of years and is now a postulant in the convent. And people say, wow, what did you do? How did you do that? I want my kid to be a nun. Okay. And then we've got 3 kids that are your pretty average, awesome kids, going to college, doing their thing. And then we have one who's struggling terribly with mental illness. She barely graduated or got her college or high school degree with a lot of help and pushing.
Depression, bipolar.
A borderline is what they're looking at, emerging borderline. She struggled her whole life. So this isn't just a new thing. So she was doing the cutting. She had the suicidal ideations. She's been in residential therapy 3 times. We had a time where we were calling the police quite a bit because she had a knife out or she was threatening us. And she now is I'm a grandma, expecting a baby in May. We still don't know if baby's going to be adopted, if she's going to raise baby. And this is all the same DNA. This is all the same house, same parents. And yet, people do that too. Oh, what's wrong? Then there's what's wrong with you? What did you do wrong? Because she's not, socially acceptable.
Oh.
So it's really, it's such a mishmash. We know our kids have different challenges and gifts. And what we try to do is just, here's your gifts. What are you going to do with them? because that's easier than trying to be like somebody else.
Now, what's the age difference between your oldest daughter and the youngest?
The oldest is 8. They're like every other year, pretty
And
much.
how does the nun relate to the struggling sister?
To the wayward. All the kids are fantastic with her. They always have been. It's always been something's up with Mary. She just from day one wasn't like my oldest 2. I'd be such a snob if I had 2 kids, because the first 2 I would read them books and we'd eat broccoli and I'd put them to bed and they were nice to people and they, got good grades and they loved learning Latin and all that stuff. And then I think God said, "You shall be humbled," because I thought that was me. The good mom is what gave them that, right?
Look what I made.
Yes. So now I don't want to take credit either way. I'm proud of all my kids and my sweet Mary, who's struggled so much. I mean, she's just this amazing person. And I see my job the same as I did with the one who went to the convent and the one who wants to be an artist. It's like, what do you want to do? Let's find your path to what you can do to share your gifts. Because I don't want to take credit for the nun, and I don't want to take credit for the, suicide attempts. It's just, you take what you got. And I do think people come in your life to help guide you one way or the other, or give you a chance to respond. Like Megan down the hall from me at college, freshman year, there's no way I would have ended up at St. Francis. I'd never heard of it if she hadn't been down the hall.
They do come into your life. However, there are sometimes those people in your life and you don't listen to them.
This is true.
So there are people who are showing up and they're saying things and we're like, yeah. So
Right.
There's got to be something going on there where when the student's ready, the teacher appears, you've got to be at least receptive to what that person is offering.
Right. And I think that comes from self-awareness. Like I'm really big on that, trying to self-awareness and reading about self-awareness. And I try to help my kids do that, because I think I didn't get self-aware till a lot later. Because when I lived just checking the boxes, I'm supposed to graduate from high school, I'm supposed to go to college, I'm supposed to get a degree, I was just checking the boxes. But I think once you can become more self-aware, and of course some of that comes with age, your life is so much richer, because you are looking for those people and you have a better discernment of, is this person for me, or I'm supposed to keep looking or whatever.
You said that when you don't know the right way to go, you're a little bit like lost,
Yeah.
What is your process for discernment? What do you do to attempt to discern the correct path for Joe?
For me, the first thing I always do is say there may not be one right way. So I don't lock myself into right, wrong, which sometimes it is, but often it's which way would be better. I also look at it as what's going to bring the best good, like what good's going to come from this if I do it this way or do it that way. With the daughter with mental illness, like she took us to the edges of insanity with how can we help her? Because when someone's depressed, logic doesn't work. So I like 4 years ago started praying. Every morning I get up for half an hour and I pray. And
how do you pray? What does that look like? Do you get on your knees? Do you sit in a chair? Do you lie?
I do not get in my knees. That I have a comfortable chair, and I do some journaling, and then I'll read some scripture, or I will just write, God, this is really bothering me today. Like bringing it to the light is good. What was the other day? It was really bugging me. I can't remember what it was. Somebody was really bothering me, and I'm like, God, why is this person bothering me so much? And then it was like they didn't bother me anymore. And I'm like, I get up every morning early and and spend this time. To me, it's like an anchor. Like, I think I've put my anchor with God and with that time. And there's a peacefulness that comes from that I don't find anywhere else. So atheists do great. I don't think people have to do this, but I think people who stop and spend some time with Jesus and just let him love them and just talk to him, to me it's an anchor that gives me hope. Because like my daughter, one day she was really sad and she's like, well, what would you do if I killed myself? And I said, well, there's a part of my heart that would be so crushed and broken it would never heal. And she's like, well, if I killed myself, then you could kill yourself too, and then you wouldn't hurt. And I'm like, wow, you're really hurting right now. And
Did
for
you
a brief
say that
moment,
to
I'm
her?
like, I did. And then I was thinking, you know what? That I can't imagine the pain of a loved one killing themselves. And sometimes you hear people will copycat that, and I can't fault that or judge that at all. That pain is so deep. And if that's the only way you can make it stop, like, I'm not advocating it, but I can see how someone can go that far deep in pain. And I feel like the only thing that's drawn me back from those times is the anchor of God. I hope this is getting where you want it to be, because I
No,
could
it's
talk
not
about
up
this
to me.
forever. But
But what do you mean by the anchor of God getting at?
yeah, often it's not, I don't hear voices or anything, but I
Right.
will often just have a peacefulness
Mm,
to move forward with confidence.
mm.
Once I spend some time, I think it's kind of like when you're a little kid and you fall down and your mom scoops you up or your dad scoops you up, and you feel safe and like grounded again, like they're bigger than you and they know it's okay, and then you scoot the kid off to go back and play on the playground again.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of like that. It's like, God, I am here and I am so broken and I don't even know how to get up off the floor.
Mm.
And somehow just that peacefulness of prayer time lets me know there's something bigger than me. Like, for me, that's really important. If I'm the main decision maker of this world, we're in trouble. So I like it. There's someone bigger than me. So that prayer time is like the sitting with like your mom or your dad and getting refocused so you can go back out and try it again. I'm
Yeah.
gonna be my daughter's support person, and I'm kind of freaking out a little bit because I've never been at it from that angle where I'm not the one giving birth. I'll be there in a different manner.
How far along is she?
She's due May 5th, so
Oh
like
my word.
33 weeks
She
maybe.
get sick? Did she get really sick in the first trimester?
Not too bad. No, she's young and healthy, so I think.
Has her mood stabilized during the pregnancy?
Here's the crazy part. She is the sweetest, nicest, most warm person ever. And I'm like, I know you can't stay pregnant forever, but she's been the nicest since. So there must be some hormonal thing involved here too, because
Yeah.
she's been awesome. So checking in with us. Yeah.
I always ask, if you, God forbid, drop dead today, what would people say at the memorial, and what would you like them to say?
Okay, I would want them to say that I always did the best I could, that I gave as best I could and the most I could, and that I was really fun to be with. What I'm trying to think, who I would think any one of my family people would talk.
Mm-hmm.
I think they would say they feel loved and learned about family. I think that's what they'd say. And they'd say, why didn't she write down all her passwords to all her accounts? They would be, because they keep changing.
we can't get into anything.
Right. I know there's
that?
money in that PayPal account. So.
Oh, that's great. That's perfect. That's wonderful.
So.
Yeah, you've got a lot of great stuff.
Thank you so much, Stuart.
Thanks, Joe.
And I have news. Joe's daughter, Mary, had her baby ahead of time, weeks ahead of time. Little baby girl. So Joe is a grandma, and her daughter is a mother. And more will be revealed. Thank you, Joe. Great story. Great story. Can't wait for the book.
ManListening is a production of Unmediated LLC in cooperation with the Queen City Podcast Network and Balto Creative Media. Allison Andrews at Andrews Creative and Rachel Clapp Miller are developmental producers. Sally Higgins at Higgins & Owens tries to keep us legal. Our music is A Day at the Park by the group Pictures of the Floating World. Your announcer is Catherine Smith. That's me. Please go to our Patreon page. You'll find us at patreon.com. Look for ManListening, one word, no spaces. We hope you'll join us by becoming a member. A small investment can raise up the conversation. If you want exclusive member merch, like a t-shirt, we can arrange that too.
Thank you to everyone who has supported ManListening from the very beginning. I continue to bump into people who thoroughly love the podcast and get a lot out of it. Had lunch with one today, my friend Jeff. So I love you guys, and I appreciate all your help.
Don't forget to support us at Patreon. We believe one voice can change the conversation. Click the subscribe button, and next week you'll hear.
I believe our brains are significantly changed by loss and relinquishment and adoption, that we are not the same beings as humans that didn't.
That's next week on ManListening. Thanks.